Yeah, so Mary, I'd love to go over to you and to go from, like, Richard, there was a really interesting overview of like the high level of all the different ways in which we can have distributed. And I'd love to go from that general down to the specific. So Holochain has developed an open source protocol for building peer-to-peer distributed networks. What, in your view, are the problems created by having fully centralized technology? And then what are the, like, why is collaboratively managed standards like Holochain and open protocols like that a solution to those problems?
Okay, well, maybe I'll take a little step back and talk a little bit about what we're doing and how it's distinct even from some of the things that Dick was describing. So Holochain is a peer-to-peer application framework. So it's infrastructure for building applications. And that's different than some of the other types of things you would have heard about, like blockchains, where everything runs on a blockchain essentially, and everybody is writing apps, and all the apps sort of post out and use the blockchain infrastructure for the running of their applications. In Holochain, every application is its own network. So every application sits apart from the current internet. They're not automatically, you can't just go out to a web browser and access it immediately. You can install it if you find it, install it, and then you can join the network as a node, as a user. It's a very different like approach, and you come into it a little bit differently. Now, the thing is to get a little bit to what you were asking about, when Holochain was architected, it was looking at how does the world work? How do ecosystems work? How does the natural living world work? Well, there's a lot of resilience in it, but there's also a lot of chaos, like you were saying, and that different things exist and can go wrong. And basically what happens is that each thing has agency, and each thing is doing its own piece, and they build flows and they build interactions, and then things come to levels of stasis or stability and interaction. So Holochain was sort of modeled on some of that type of biomimicry, the way natural systems work. And the idea was that you do start at the beginning with agents taking an action. So all action are all, you can call them transactions, but all things that you do, whether it's a chat or whether it's a financial transaction or whether it's anything, starts with a person taking an action. So it's person, verb, and then there is something that exists. And that thing exists in the context of the network that you joined. So the thing is that when this stuff is happening, the assumption right now is that everything has to be centralized. We don't even think about it. I mean, I really want to say that that is the baseline. Because while we've all been knowing about distributed technologies, if somebody talks about data, we don't think about data all over. We think about data in a database. And a database, by most of our understanding, design, default, is centralized. We, out here, put data in there, and somebody else controls that data. And that is one of the fundamental things that we thought needed to be transformed. So in Holochain, I write data to my chain. It's valid because I wrote it to my chain. I don't need anything else as a starting point for that to be valid. Then I put it into a distributed space, a distributed hash table. And there it does get validated because there it becomes a social piece of data, something that has to be validated in order for you to believe it or you to accept it or to say, yes, this meets the rules of the game we're playing, the game being a chat application, the game being a game, the game being a financial transaction. We're all just playing games with following sets of rules. And in Holochain, the application is the shared set of rules. And then everything else is just about, well, how do we make this interoperable? How do we make this work with other protocols? How do we make this work with other applications? So step me back to the question if you want me to answer something differently, because I know I went all over the map there.
So, no, that's an amazing overview and the kind of philosophy behind Holochain as well. I feel like there's a great dose of philosophy on this panel so far with both the DAO of that and the biomimicry of Holochain. What I'm super curious is about what the risks are created by centralized technology, right? And because that's to me like what we're trying to get at with why do we want to go through this whole process of doing decentralization? So what are those risks, and then like how do we solve for that with this?
Well, I think there's so many, and I don't think we can even get into all of them, but I'll just give one crazy little use case that I was talking to somebody about recently. And it's about something it's not mundane, it's important, it's a big issue. It's about the storage of real-world waste, nuclear waste. I know that sounds crazy, but it's really, there's this thing that happens when people are doing the containers for nuclear waste, which is that we need to know where they are. We don't need to know where they are tomorrow, and just next week. We need to know where they are for a long time. And the problem is that people have done different types of technologies to sort of store information about where things have been placed in the world. And guess what? If they're in a centralized database, that's not very resilient, because people are known to delete centralized databases because one person can delete all the data. When you move things into a more distributed system that has more transparency, where it actually can live, not just in one place and not necessarily even replicated all the same everywhere, but truly distributed, there is a guarantee, like the chaos aspect of it actually guarantees the resilience of it. We need to have more resilient systems. This is actually a use case that was built out on a distributed system precisely because they had problems where they had lost data in the past because it had been deleted. This is a real world issue. Now, there's so many other social issues that we're dealing with right now. There's issues with everybody trying to be speaking in one space online. That is a massive problem. We're not very nice to one another when we speak online in one space. And part of it is we have no control about the spaces online. So digital space is just another layer of our lives. It's not some other thing, right? I have a living room in my house, and I can have living rooms in a digital world. But right now, my living room in a digital world is managed by a centralized platform, and that's inappropriate. It's unnecessary. I don't need everybody to see everything or hear everything in my living room, but I do need spaces that can be that living room that are digital, and those should be ones that I have more access, agency, and control over. So that's one aspect of what it can create. I'll stop because I feel like I'm taking up a little too much air.
No, you're doing great. And you've given us like excellent transition points for me to bring Rachel into the conversation here. So